Hello my dear friends, you're in the military summary channel. On this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where yesterday the Russians carried out the mega attack through the territory of Ukraine. More precisely, the Russians were attacking the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev, and as of the previous night, between the 2nd and the 3rd of July of 2026, the Russians set another record of gas stations destroyed through the territory of Ukraine. During the previous 12 hours, between the 2nd and the 3rd of July of 2026, the Russians destroyed dozens of gas stations, and we see that the Russians continue this process. So let's discuss this in details, but first, before we start, for the first time probably since the beginning of the gas station war, the Ukrainian sources published the first videos about the situation around gas stations in the area of the city of Sumy Chernihiv and Kharkiv. In these videos, we can see dozens of vehicles of Ukraine waiting for their turn to get fuel. So these are the consequences of the gas station war that started somewhere in April of 2026, and a gas station war is a part of the fuel war that is also taking place between Russians and the Ukrainians. As for the Russian side, we start receiving videos about problems with gas stations a long time ago, but the Russians have different problems. The Russians don't have problems with gas stations themselves. The Russians have problems with fuel on these gas stations. We have lots of videos with lines of vehicles through the entire territory of the Russian Federation waiting for their turn to receive fuel. So we have almost the same problem but different approaches. The Ukrainians attack refineries with the purpose to reduce Russia's fuel capabilities. The Russians destroyed gas stations through the territory with the purpose to reduce the logistics capabilities. So let's discuss everything in details, and first let's talk about the northern directions. During the previous 12 hours, two areas were recorded where the Russians destroyed gas stations. This is the settlement of Berezovka Alexandry, and in this picture we can see just the consequences of attack. A fire broke out right after the Russians attacked the territory with the drone. So the gas station in this area was destroyed, and a bit further along N07 roads in the direction of the city of Sumy, we have the settlement of Nedrigailov. As for this settlement, we have a gas station that was destroyed as a result of Gerань strike as well. So we have just pictures without video. So as you can see now, the Russians are tasked to destroy the logistics between the cities of Sumy and Kiev, and these are not the first gas stations destroyed along the road. The Russians continue the process. Now let's talk about the city of Kharkiv. Another gas station destroyed was recorded through the northern parts of the settlement, and this picture was published this morning by pro-Ukrainian sources. As of the territory between the Chernihiv, Sumy and Kharkiv, the fuel war or the gas station war started through this region in April of 2026, and during April, May and June of 2026 the Russians destroyed almost every single gas station through the area. Probably not maybe every single one, but probably up to 30 or 40% of gas stations were destroyed through these territories. As of the end of June and the end of June and the beginning of July of 2026, the Russians shift their focus from these territories in the direction of the southern regions. As for the second part of June and the first part of July, we start receiving dozens of updates about gas stations destroyed by Russians between Odessa, Mykolaiv, Kherson, Zaporizhzhia and Dnipro region. And as of the previous night, between the 2nd and the 3rd of July, the biggest number of gas stations were destroyed right exactly through this area. Right now the Russians are trying to cut logistics and connections between different places and cities. For example, it seems that the Russians are tasked to cut logistics between Odessa and Mykolaiv. As of the previous 24 hours, at least two gas stations were destroyed by Russians in this area, and in this video we can see the consequences of attack, fresh scenes. As you can see, this video was published probably several hours ago, and as a result of attack we can see that the gas station was was wiped out by Russians. Here we have the same gas station, probably first seconds after attack, and here we have the same gas station but from another angle. A bit further we have a gas station along the roads of N24 between the cities of Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv-Yuzhnoukrainsk, where the Ukrainians have their South Ukrainian nuclear power station. In this video we can see the consequences of attack. As the results of attack, another gas station was wiped out. Another important area is the territory between the city of Mykolaiv and Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia regions. During the previous 12 hours, first gas stations were destroyed through this area. For example, lots of gas stations were destroyed along M30 road and further in the southwestern direction towards the city of Kryvyi Rog along N11 road. In this video, for example, we can see the consequences of attack. The fire crews were trying to extinguish the fire after the Russians attacked this territory with a drone. As a result of attack, as we can see, the gas station was completely wiped out by Russians. Further, along the N11 roads, another gas station was destroyed, and this is the situation in this area. First videos were published by local sources. As a result of attack, the gas station was destroyed completely, and these are the final pictures about this area that were published this morning. And of course, the city of Zaporizhzhia and N08 roads, Dnipro-Zaporizhzhia region roads, was also destroyed, a gas station, and these pictures were published during the previous night. So the gas station war intensifies, but the most important thing that we need to understand that for some reason the Ukrainians are not attacking the territory of the Russian Federation and gas stations through the territory of Russia, but the Russians are doing this. So the question is, why is this happening? And the question is, probably the correct question is, when the Ukrainians are planning to begin attacking gas stations through the territory of the Russian Federation. And you know that right now the Russians use a very interesting tactics, because these days, I believe you have seen lots of videos on this matter. We have lots of videos with gas stations through the territory of Russia with hundreds of vehicles around. Some sources are saying that sometimes Russians need to wait 1 or 2 days to receive fuel. So this is a very important situation, because you need to understand that this is not just, let's say, a fuel crisis on the territory of Russia. Maybe from one perspective this is some sort of a fuel crisis, but from the other side we need to understand that currently the Russians created the situation when almost every single gas station through the territory of Russia is surrounded by hundreds of vehicles and maybe even by hundreds of civilians. So as you can see, the Russians, when they began attacking and destroying gas stations through the territory of Ukraine, created a situation when every single gas station in the territory of Russia is surrounded with a human shield. So this is a very interesting tactics. Probably this sounds a bit not probably normal, right? But from this military perspective, the Russians are using not air defense forces or systems to destroy drones that may attack gas stations, but the Russians use human shields to protect them, because we understand that the Ukrainians will not attack, or they will try to avoid attacks on gas stations with hundreds of civilians, because this could lead to unpredictable consequences. We are talking about the consequences on the international level. And we see that just now on the 3rd of July of 2026, the Ukrainians came to the conclusion that it's also a very interesting situation to surround gas stations with civilians, with vehicles, because obviously the Russians will not attack such a gas stations as well. So this is a tactics that we see that the Russians started using a long time ago, but now we see that only these days the Ukrainians came to the conclusion that it's also an option how to protect gas stations against Russia's attacks. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. During the previous 12 hours, lots of very interesting changes were recorded. And first, let's talk about the Slaviansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinovka direction. During the previous 12 hours, the Russians, as a result of clashes, managed to improve their position significantly. Yesterday, in the second part of the day, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation reported that the units of the group of forces south, as a result of clashes, established complete control over the settlement by the name of Piskunovka, which is located along the Seversky Donetsk River to the west of Krivoluka, to the north of Alexandrovka, and to the east of the city of Slaviansk. Based on the report that was published by pro-Russian sources by the Minister of Defense, we have adjusted the map. Furthermore, we have this video where we can see how exactly the clashes for the settlement of Piskunovka were taking place. Here we can see how the Russians were bombing the village, how the Russians were trying to force the Ukrainians to fall back from this territory. And in the final part of this video, we can see at least 8 episodes where Russians were raising their Russian flag through the settlement of Piskunovka. 8 episodes, it seems, were recorded. Yes, 8 flags were raised by Russians. Every single flag was geolocated through this territory. Now, there were not 8 but 9 flags in this area, and based on this video, we have no doubts that the Russians indeed, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Piskunovka. And these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 1st of July of 2026, and this is the end of the 2nd of July, and this is already the morning of the 3rd of July. The Russians managed to finish the battle for another settlement to the east of the city of Slaviansk, and currently there are just 2 villages left before the beginning of the battle for the city of Slaviansk from the east. We're talking about the village of Starodubovka, but it seems that in coming hours, maybe even today, the Russians will announce complete control over this small settlement, and then the battle for the city of Mykolaiv begins. This battle will take time. This is going to be not a very easy battle for Russians, because the Ukrainians have the city of Slaviansk very close to this area, it seems, and we believe that the battle for Mykolaiv will last maybe even a month or even maybe more, and the battle for this settlement of Mykolaiv would be something that we used to see during the battle for the Canal micro-district of the city of Chasov-Yar, its eastern part. So it took probably several months before the Russians were able to take this territory under complete control before the beginning of the battle for the city itself. So it will be the same thing, because the city of Mykolaiv is a stronghold. It's several strongholds in this area combined into one big city. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupyansk direction. During the previous 12 hours, additional changes on the ground were recorded through this area as well. For example, this is the end of the 2nd of July of 2026, and this is the beginning of the 3rd of July. The Russians improved their position significantly, and these changes on the ground were made based on the reports that were published by pro-Russian sources, and based on this video where we can see at least 2 flags raised by Russians through the settlements of Druzhilubovka and Cherneshina. In this video we can see lots of episodes when were Russians moving from one side of the village to another, and based on this video we came to the conclusion that everything to the east is already under complete Russian control. So we see that the news around the Belgorod pocket is tightening. The Russians continue their offensive operation from many directions, from the north, from the northeast, from the east, and from the southeast. And I would like to remind you that several days ago the president of the Russian Federation, Putin, stated that there are just 2 kilometers left before complete encirclement of the contingent of the armed forces of Ukraine on the territory of the southern Kupyansk or the Belgorod pocket. Now it's become clear that the Russians are tasked to finish this battle for these pockets and to force the Ukrainians to fall back from the southern Kupyansk direction on the Ukraine side of the river of Oskol. So this is the river of Oskol, and the Russians are going to take every single square kilometer along this river under their complete and final control. And then we'll see what is going to happen next, because there are lots of options. The Russians may try to begin offensive operation in the direction of the city of Slaviansk. The Russians may try to attack the cities of Izum and Oskol. The Russians may try to cross the river of Oskol along the entire river itself with the purpose to create a strong foothold on the Ukraine side. So many options, and most likely every single option is an option, and the Russians will try to develop their positions and to improve their positions. Another important area is the northern Kupyansk direction in the area of the settlement of Nova Osinova. Today we received another video with the Russian soldier moving through the settlement of Nova Osinova, and here we can see Russian troops moving, patrolling the situation. So based on this video video, we have adjusted the map as well. So as we can see, according to these changes, these territories used to be considered as the territories both under the Russian and the Ukrainian controls, but now we see that most likely there are no more Ukraine's positions in this area. The Ukrainians control probably several railway stations along the river Voskol in the area of the settlement of Pristin, but it seems that this is just a matter of time when the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back completely from this area further to the west with the purpose to organize and to hold the lines and defenses along the river of Voskol along its western bank. Now let's move further. As was expected during the previous 24 hours, after the Russians carried out a massive attack through the entire territory of Ukraine, it was expected that the Ukrainians would retaliate. At least yesterday, the Ukrainians carried out reconnaissance in combat with drones to attack the city of Kstovo, and as a result of attack, the oil refinery of Kstovo was damaged. So it was expected that after this reconnaissance in force or reconnaissance in spam, the Ukrainians would carry out another massive attack deep inside of the territory of Russia with the purpose to retaliate. But and the Ukrainians launched drones, lots of pictures and lots of videos were published on this matter. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation this morning reported that during the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed 255 drones all over the entire territory of Russia, and it seems that the retaliation from the Ukrainian side was repelled. Several explosions were recorded through the city of Belgorod. The sources reported that the Ukrainians attacked objects of energy infrastructure. Several energy substations were damaged by the Ukrainians as a result of the overnight attack, but as you can see, nothing special. Furthermore, this is not the city which is located deep inside of the territory of Russia. The city of Belgorod is located along the line of combat contact, which means that most likely the Ukrainians were attacking the city of Belgorod somewhere from the central part of Ukraine, from this territory, and this is the reason why they were able just to attack the city along the line of combat contact where the Russians has less air defense forces. Furthermore, during the previous nights, the Ukrainians were attacking Crimea, and the sources reported this morning lots of fire anomalies were recorded through Crimea, and according to these fire anomalies, the Ukrainians were attacking almost only objects of energy infrastructure. We are talking about substations, energy lines, and so on. So, as you can see, the effectiveness of long-range and mid-range strikes from the Ukrainian side has dropped significantly since the second half of June of 2026, and as we discussed this many times before, I connect this situation with the fact that the Russians have already wiped out dozens, hundreds of gas stations through the territory of Ukraine. And that's it for the short video. The Military with Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, show me Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.